Well, our guest today is Russell Brand. He is the host of the eponymously titled show, Russell Brand Show, fellow Rumbler, live streamer on Rumble, often suppressed and banished on YouTube, just like us. Hand slapped, bitch slapped, whatever else you want to say. Truth seeker. Russell Brand is joining us today and has been I think maybe a dominant suggestion for a guest among our audience members. When will you have Russell on the show?
Yeah.
We've finally made it happen. Russell, welcome to Redacted. So great to have you here.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you both for having me.
Yes. We share in common the fact that we have to navigate the, what do we call them?
Gatekeepers.
The Road Map of Censorship. So we wanted to talk to you about that today because, it feels awful a lot of times when we get our hands slapped by certain media powers. So how do you navigate that and in the increasing world of censorship?
In a way, as has frequently been the case historically with censorship, it can help you to reframe the discourse and establish in-groups and, sadly, out-groups. I feel that when you know that you have to be careful about what you're saying, there's a kind of an intimate argot that can be established between you and the audience, that they can recognize that you are using euphemism, slang, inference. They also recognize that censorship, generally speaking, is an indication of an agenda. Of course, the explicit reason for the agenda is protection, safety, security, but increasingly it feels like there are other intentions, and I think people are becoming more dexterous, adept, and well-versed in what the dialectics of power actually are. That censorship is about controlling information, and if you start to look for the exertion of control through newly emergent power spaces, you see it everywhere. Surveillance, censorship, legislation, regulation, smearing. You learn to see it. That doesn't mean that we can, as obviously as a fan of your channel, I'm aware that you don't lean into unfounded information or ungrounded information. It means that we have to be responsible, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun and can't speculate. On a more empirical and journalistic level, we tend to undergird our content with sources that are somewhat within legacy media. You can find opinion pieces or op-eds that are, if you're operating across the left and right spectrum, at least, and delving into academia, you can use papers and articles that have already been published to sort of create meta narratives without having to make claims that haven't been published elsewhere.
How did you come to this work? I mean, as an actor, a person who probably has had doors been able to be opened for him on a regular basis, you made a decision one day to do this show, to be a truth seeker, to want to bring this awareness to other people, and you've attracted all of these like-minded, as you say, awakened wonders to your audience. You could have just coasted, right? You could have just.
Well, we don't know what he could have just done, but it seems to us that all doors are open to you. So how did you?
Yeah. So how did you decide to? Was there one moment when you said, "I need to do this. This is bigger than me. I need to bring awareness to people about these subjects, the censorship, the powers that be that are controlling us."
I would like to alloy my personal vision and dharma to such a grand vision. I would love to. In a minute, I might try to do that. But most initially, I suppose all of us find our individual skill sets are harvested by one or numerous institutions, educational institutions, or work or commercial institutions. In a way, getting into the entertainment industry seems natural if you have artistic or creative tendencies, which could equate to having an inquiring mind. So it seems like a natural thing to, if you find performance enjoyable. I used to say, like earlier, before I was like, before the path had become this way for me, I used to say that I both really I felt like really motivated, excuse me, by egotism and sort of personal validation and those kind of things, like, enjoying attention, but also that I was very committed to comedy and what I do as a creator or an artist, if you'll forgive that rather grandiose word. So I had both sides, like I felt like I had a lot of integrity as a performer, and I was performed stand-up comedy for a long, long time without getting paid for it, as most stand-up comedians do. You do unpaid spots for a long while you learn your craft, and personally, I wasn't very good at it for a while, so I failed a lot, and but I kept doing it because I really, really believed in it. I really, really believed in it, and I really, really wanted it. So because I was fortunate enough to have a career in show business, should we call it, I was able to experience what the fulfillment of that particular dream is like. This is what it's like if you become a celebrity. This is what it's like to be famous and have that attention and the red carpets and the popping flash bulbs and the adulation and everything that one assumes comes with it. Within me, though, throughout, even prior to experiencing it, I had a sense, and I don't know where this sense comes from, Natali, Clayton, but that it was not gonna be fulfilling, that it was not gonna be nourishing. And then when, of course, it wasn't, I started to feel something quite profound, a kind of distaste for myself, I suppose, and a distaste for my circumstances. So while I didn't make a definite decision to not continue to actively pursue show business, circumstances dictated as well. It's a very sort of capricious business. You could be really, really hot in that business for a minute and then sort of not really. And I guess that happened to me, to be honest. But like throughout it, I didn't really feel especially engaged, except for some of the films I did. I really liked them, and I worked with people that are super talented, and that's always amazing to be around people that are funny and smart and quick and brilliant. But I always sort of felt there's something else I want to connect to. I mean, you've similarly been through institutional media, haven't you? You've worked at like Fox or wherever, and in a way, it's sort of part of it happens for you. Part of many of these decisions kind of get made for you, and the technology determines, what's the point of Charles Dickens before the advent of the printing press? These things are somewhat like dictated by technological advancement. But I always felt that what I wanted to do was speak as directly to people as I possibly could and listen to people, which our form of media really permits. It allows you necessary humility. It allows you to continually recognize that I don't know very much. In fact, what I do know is negligible, and collectively we understand a lot more. And this is what's led to the sort of polarity between technocracy, the idea that a cadre of experts should be in control, and an emergent, somewhat amorphous and complex populism. And I feel that the latter is what we need to harness and direct in order to create new power models, but the former is what the establishment obviously wants to maintain and double down on by legitimizing centralized authoritarianism.
Yeah.
May I follow up on that?
Go ahead.
So I think that's amazing. And then you step aside from that. Were you surprised, Russell, by, of course, you've had those relationships, you've met all these amazing people, you've had doors open for you. When you started on this journey of seeking the truth, were you surprised then that you suddenly got maybe some of those doors slammed on you, or the hit pieces then that were calling you a conspiracy theorist, and then to find out one day you wake up to find out that YouTube has removed videos of you? Like, was that how did that sit with you? What was your response?
I'm not surprised by that. Of course, understandably, people only have an image of a public figure from the point they enter the public realm. People don't go, I wonder what that person was like when they were 6 or 19 or 14 or 21 or 30. Well, what I was like was I grew up in a blue-collar community in Essex, which is the equivalent of New Jersey. I was a heroin and crack addict. I know what it's like to live a normal life. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like not to trust any institutions. I know what it's like not to trust school or any system of authority at all. That's what I know. I also know the idea that you're supposed to mine yourself and harness yourself and turn yourself into a success, that is the great American narrative, the self-made person, the American dream. You can have nothing and you can build yourself a life. So I have never trusted authority because my relationship with authority has always created problems for me. I don't start from a position of I trust authority until. I start from I do not trust authority until. When I watched, it's a frivolous example, Making a Murderer, the Netflix show with my wife was like, oh my God, I can't believe the police do things like this. And I'm like, of course, that's how authority behaves. Now, I've got good friends in the police force. I've got good friends in the services. I'm not condemning people that join those valiant and honourable organisations. I'm just saying that the function of authority is control. The function of authority is not service. I've experienced that all my life. So when you get censored, for me, that's something that I anticipate and expect. Also, I know that when you're a celebrity in the more frivolous world of TMZ and empty, distracting gossip, if you say something inadvertently that is at odds with the ordinary flow of the discourse of power, you will be attacked. I've been attacked many times. I know what it's like to say something, about my personal life, for example, and recognize, hold on a minute, that's not what I said. I said X, they printed Y, and now they're asking me to defend myself on the basis of Y. But I said X. That's not fair. As I've seen it happen many, many times in more trivial instances, but nevertheless, the pattern, the format is the same. So it didn't surprise me at all. That's not to say it didn't agitate me or irritate me, but fortunately, the sort of, I suppose, the spiritual response to that stuff is, what other people think about me is none of my business. Let go of it. Be of service. Get in contact with what you believe to be true. Let go of your vanity. Stop trying to control things that are beyond your control. So that's personally how I've handled it so far.
The other day, my sister, she made fun of something of my makeup, and I was like, that really hurts my feelings. And she says, people say all these crappy things to you on the internet all the time. How come I can hurt your feelings? And I said, it doesn't bother me. But when my sister hurt my feelings, that was below the belt. So I can sort of understand how you put things in different perspectives.
Your sister's out of control. Your makeup's fantastic. I don't know what she's talking about. The sibling rivalry. I have two daughters myself, and my two daughters, the way they talk to each other sometimes, it's astonishing. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come to arms.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of research that shows that boys can physically harm each other, but girls hit below the belt because they know how. And so when there's two girls, yeah. So anyhow, we want to talk about parenting. Although I do have a question about whether or not you discipline them in the Dr. Nefario voice, because that's really popular in my house. So if they ever get in trouble, do they get a Dr. Nefario?
When our kids found out we were talking to you today, they said they didn't know your name, but they knew Dr. Nefario.
Yeah.
And they were very excited about it.
I can administer punishments in a variety of voices if that's what's required. Although actually that voice has entered the mythology of our household as yet another compliant, apparent authority figure. The problem is that I've taught my daughters never trust authority, always question authority, start on the basis that you cannot trust it until it proves itself valid. Authority should be achieved by consensus, not by exertion of force. So it's very difficult to get them to go to bed, have baths, eat food, do anything.
Okay, well, I was hoping we could leave a voicemail for my son about doing his chores and Dr. Nefario, maybe later. One of the things
I am willing to, yes.
Okay,
I'm willing to operate in the service of your family. I will be an enforcer for the Morrises.
Amazing. Okay. One of the things, let's get back to the idea of power grabs, because this is something that we struggle with a lot, and especially after I read Michael Schellenberger's book talking about how people who question authority or are more upset with their government tend to be more depressed or maybe seek out violence a little more. And so one of the things you do is really try hard not to rile up your viewers, even though we're collectively angry, but instead sort of empower them. We think about this a lot as we go over these topics. Even when we talk about this over the dinner table, we think, how do you think other creators handle this, is to empower people, even though we're presenting them information that pisses everybody off. How do you maintain that balance when you think about this?
It seems to me obvious, organic, and necessary that independent media and independent new political alliances have shared goals and aims. It seems to me obvious, apparent, and necessary that from the spaces that we currently operate in, new political conversations and new political power bases might be formed that challenge existing ones. It's necessary to approach this with a degree of optimism. I feel there is a limit to what can be achieved by hate, and in a sense, one might even remove the subject. You can say if one side hates people for this aspect of their identity and the other side hates people for this aspect of their identity, you can remove the subject, or the object rather, and say, what's the point in hatred? I feel like that we almost have to be grateful to the systems that have preceded the forthcoming changes, thank people for establishing economic and media models that were useful to get us to this point, and now move forward to what appears to be trying to be born. This, I don't think, can be done with endless cynicism. Sometimes I do find it difficult to do yet another story about how there's corruption in the Democrat Party that's evidently traceable to their funding model, or pledges that were made prior to an election opposed to legislation offered subsequent to it. In a way, you can't take the news personally. The news isn't happening to me. The news isn't happening to you. It's just happening. It's a kind of systemic inertia. Of course, it's negatively impacting us. Of course, it's very, very annoying. But in a sense, it's the sort of the weight and freight of history tumbling forwards unarrested until we arrest it. And I think that by entering into a kind of mindset of anger, it's self-castrating and disempowering. I once participated in our country. Jeremy Corbyn's rise was precipitated by a kind of dismay around homogenized neoliberal bipartisan politics, comparable, I suppose, to the political model in your own country. And I was at a rally once. This was before Corbyn became the leader of the left-wing Labour Party in our country, although it is a sort of, broadly speaking, has become a homogenized and centralist party, and is again subsequent to Corbyn's tenure. And like at the rally, it was outside the Houses of Parliament, held on Parliament Green, Parliament Square, as rallies often are of this nature. I felt like I recognised, and I don't purport to be an expert, that there was something about the emotional timbre and manner of the protest that meant that it would be forever entrenched in opposition, that they were not serious about, we should be doing this, we should be in charge. The way they were behaving was like, that's power, power's always going to be like this, and we are just going to shout at it. And I feel like that's the accepted dynamic, almost like in a, and forgive this, I'm certainly this, don't draw anything from this inference, in a bad marriage. In a successful marriage, both sides are cooperating, recognizing what their roles are, and a kind of symbiosis, syntheses can achieve from the thesis and antithesis. In a dynamic like ours, the oppositionism, I sometimes feel, has no goal towards power, has no real goal towards change. It has almost a rhetorical goal. And as the requirements become more diverse and more complex, as it becomes necessary for groups that support single issues around race or identity, or even organizing the workforce or traditional religious values, it seems that new alliances are going to be formed. And in order to do that, I think we have to have a different type of conversation around how power might look. I recognize what you're saying, Natali, that it's not easy to remain free from despondency, but it's necessary to. It's necessary to.
Yeah.
I think that's powerful to say that it's not happening to you, because, there'll be nights where we're, oh my God, we're going to literally cover another way in which a government has somehow manipulated us into getting a vaccine, or another document has been uncovered that shows how nefarious they actually were, and it's not happening to us. Given that, are there days where there are any stories that scare you, that you say, when you look at the 100 or so stories that you want to cover, are there any that you say, I'm just going to stay away from that because it makes me uncomfortable, or it somehow scares me and I don't think I can cover it, or there's something that you maybe heretofore haven't covered yet, and you maybe would like to, but you don't feel like you've arrived at it yet, maybe spiritually, mentally. I don't know, maybe the right word to describe it. Like, you don't. I think we struggle all with that. I'm just curious if you go through that.
Sometimes it seems tactical. I'm always very flattered when people say that I seem fearless. I've had people say that about me, and I'm flattered by that. But I do experience fear. I'm a recovering drug addict, and fear plays a significant role in my psyche, in my active addiction, and the acknowledgement and awareness of fear is a significant part of my recovery. Sometimes there are stories that make you recognize that there is power out there, that there are people whose message or words or even connections and personal history are detrimental to the agenda of, let's call them establishment elites. I think we all sort of have a broad sense of what we mean by that. And when you observe how easily they can be dismissed, imprisoned, smeared, killed, potentially even, I feel like, because look, we work in media. So sometimes it's easy to, and that's why I said that point about it's necessary for this to become a kind of activist movement, a very democratic, open, inclusive, representative one. I mean to say representative of all the views from very traditional to very progressive. But sometimes I just feel like, we're just talking about this stuff. Like I'm a parent, so I go home and I've got children. You're parents, you've got children. You sort of all day, the WHO have passed this and they're lobbying to do that. Wait a minute, they're using the Espionage Act against Trump. Hang on a minute, what's in those documents? Why are you focusing on Trump? Then you go home and it's just like, right, listen.
And you fold the towels. Yeah,
you fold towels and you're stuck in traffic. And like, one of my kids is struggling at school, or you have issues like, you can't live at the level of trying to bring down a globalist conspiracy that's a corporatizing globalist plutocracy. That's not what we do on a sort of a daily basis. So I suppose that's sometimes what I find difficult is like we're not just talking this stuff. While I said earlier, it's not happening to you. It is actually happening, though. It is real, and in your real life, it's sort of like Bill Hicks used to say. You turn on the news and it's like war, famine, death, murder, and you look out your window. It's like, where's this stuff happening, man? So. It's difficult to tie it together. I do feel frightened. Of course I do. It's because you realize that a marker of we've already, as you mentioned in this interview, have been subject to some smearing. We all know that it's not about misinformation and disinformation. It's about information that's potentially harmful to the interest of the powerful. We can see that. Like, look, let's take a very, very broad example. The measures undertaken during the pandemic were undergirded by the idea that human life is sacred and we have to go to any length to protect one another. What a beautiful premise. How else do you see that premise? And just to reiterate, all human life is sacred and we should protect one another. That's the premise of lockdowns, masks, medications, because it's not just about you, other people. How else does that paradigm play out in the financial world, in the organization of our resources, in the geopolitical conflicts ongoing in the war, in the droning of foreign countries? How else do you say it doesn't, does it? They use a different idea. What is the idea that you see play out elsewhere? Control, domination, manipulation. So if you know that that's broadly the paradigm, why would you not apply that paradigm to each individual story and not assume that it's true, but investigate whether it's true or not?
Right. Under these Trojan horses of diversity or safety or whatever it is now that we're using, these entryway terms that become power grabs. And for me, I feel like I research these stories and then I present them and they can boil and continue to boil. And then what's reduced at the end in the saucepan tends to be negativity. And I have to fight that because then I realize I'm looking at anything like, I don't know, a government document. And I'm like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Everything is, it's all a part of a corrupt system. And I'm mad all the time. And I feel like we have a responsibility to not leave people with negativity. And that's something I think about a lot. And so I just wonder if that's something that you think about as well as a responsibility.
Well, and you have like one of my heroes, a person who's really changed my life, Eckhart Tolle. I know you've studied his work and have had Eckhart on your show. And so we are human beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're here amidst this chaos. How do we navigate it where we're not consumed by it and overwhelmed by it, but we can sit calmly with it, maybe sort of noticing it. In your quiet time, how are you grappling with these things?
In my quiet time, I'm trying not to grapple with those things. I love God and I love human beings and I aspire to love everyone. I fail because I have preferences. I have aversions. I would prefer everyone in the world just said I was terrific and loved me all the time, and that doesn't seem to be reality. What I aspire to is a personal awakening where I can see clearly that underneath apparent separation, there is a unitive experience, that love is that unity felt viscerally. My sense of love towards my children, to people that I've just met, strangers, people that I can form affinities with almost instantly, is based on a deep truth. We have more in common with one another than we have that divides us. And the things that we have in common are extremely important. That is why the system, let's call it, works so hard to keep us divided and full of hate. They want us afraid. They want us full of hate. And when I say they, I mean institutional interests, not individuals. I'm not 14 years old. So we have an obligation to ensure that we have good spiritual hygiene, that we look after ourselves, that we do our best to remedy the errors of the past, that we have an optimistic and hopeful vision of the future. So I am frightened and I do feel despair and despondency. And there are moments I feel like, giving up. But I also feel greatly fueled by my interaction with people when I meet them, when people say, stay free to me in the street, when people tell me either in person or in the comments that what I'm talking about is helpful to them. What I feel is true humility. True humility is the recognition of my right place in the world, that I'm not better than anybody else, that I'm not worse than anybody else, that I'm in one way an insignificant speck lost on the winds of history, but in another way, all reality takes place within my consciousness. There is nothing that is real that I know of that does not take place within my awareness. This is true of all of us. So we are caught in a very beautiful and powerful paradox. And we have to acknowledge that our relationship with ourselves is not nothing. It's like, oh, well, it's all well and good, all that spiritual hippie stuff. That's not going to get the baby bathed. Yes, it does. That is the resource that organizes reality, is your personal consciousness. The decisions that you make, the choices that you make, the choice that you make to treat other people lovingly is a valuable and important choice. It doesn't mean you have to hold yourself to a perfect standard and you're not going to slip up and make mistakes. You're human beings. You've got primal urges. You've got trauma. You've got distraction. We're trying to do this not in a natural environment, the environment we were evolved to live in, but in something between a farmyard, a zoo, and a prison. We're livestock. So how do we awaken in our cages? There has to be an individual personal awakening as a component for any kind of communal or systemic change.
Well, you've been so kind with your time. Russell, you've got a big show coming up here, so we want to be respectful of your time. We should mention that your show is Stay Free with Russell Brand, which is live every weekday on Rumble at 12 Eastern Time, 5 London Time. And it's been our great honor, great pleasure to have you here. It's been a real treat. It's been a real treat getting to know you and connect with you.
Yeah. And I think, about a year and a half ago, we started to notice that we were having overlapping viewers on our dashboard. And we thought, oh, that's very validating that, things that you are saying are resonating with our audience too. And so from one independent creator to another, we just want to say that we feel a lot of solidarity with your show, and it's absolutely our honor to share the platform with you.
Thank you. We feel the same way over here. We watch your work, we enjoy your work, we admire your bravery. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Morris. What is the name of the child that needs the Dr. Nefario message?
Oh, it would specifically be Miles and Ava. Eve doesn't know, or the baby doesn't know as much.
She's too little, she don't care. Miles, Ava, will you please obey the familial model? Listen to your parents. Do whatever's necessary and required of you. Some authority is reliable. And if you don't learn it by listening to me now, you'll learn it on the end of a fart gun. That could be
Thank you so much.
Great.
I was thinking, under what circumstances would we use this? That's my favorite line.
Did you record it? Or yeah, that is a good line. And also, while I'm here with you, Morrises, could I say that we have a festival in the UK between the 14th and 17th of July, community, the Wim Hof and Vandana Shiva are speaking at. It'll be a magnificent event. I'd like to invite you. If you guys want to come, you can, of course, attend free if you're ready for a camping festival with 3 children. God help you. And my comedy special, Brandemic, where I talk about the 3 years of the pandemic, is available on Moment, and we'll post a link somewhere for you for that. It's my stand-up special, Brandemic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Russell. Really appreciate the time, and continued on doing what you're doing. It's amazing. It's amazing work, and you're a beacon of light for folks like us. So we really mean that.
Thanks, Clayton. I appreciate that. It's really kind of both of you. Cheers.
Much love to you. All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.